Stand by. Is this thing on?
Yes, Dan.
Oh, hello.
You're listening to Old News with Dan and Carrie.
This just in.
Breaking news to report.
We are live.
Old newscasters
Can we just say former?
Sure. Former newscasters reunite behind the mic after more than 20 years.
Old news is good news.
Stay tuned.
Hey, glad to have you back for more Old News with Dan and Carrie. I'm Dan and Carrie's with us. And you also see Steve Rohrer on the screen. Steve Rohrer is a guy we used to work with many, many moons ago. He most recently was vice president and general manager at 3 Iowa TV stations. He can explain that all to us in Des Moines and Cedar Rapids. And there's a bunch of letters in there he can talk about them. There's KDSM, QGAN, Fox 28, and KGAN, CBS 2. That was for about 8 years. And before that, he was the general sales manager at KGAN and KFXA. And before that, digital sales manager at WISN TV in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, which we're very familiar with. And that was about 5 years over there. Took a little detour to Discover Media Works for about a year there. And before that, he was an account executive at ISN, WISN, and WKOW TV. And that's where his LinkedIn description stops. But Carrie and I know
we have to talk about
him
that.
because Steve also did many, many other things before that. And one of them was directing the newscasts that Carrie and I used to do, 27 First News, and he did other things. He wore about a million hats, and he was good at wearing all of those hats. Steve Rohrer, it is so great to have you on Old News.
It is awesome to see both you and Carrie. What a pleasure and treat this is for me.
You haven't changed a bit, Steve.
That's good. Again, I think a little bit less hair. My tummy's a little bit larger than it was in the past.
Hey,
but,
our square is small. We don't need to reveal secrets.
We know nothing about that.
That's right. Yeah.
Well, Steve, you were, I think you were our director for the whole time that we had First News.
Yeah. So I was thinking about this early. I did a little bit of research, and the start date. My start date at WKOW, and you both can correct me. Did we do 1 week or 2 weeks of prep at 27 First News before we went live? I thought it was one.
I think it was 1 week, and it seemed like 2 months.
I don't even know.
It seemed, because I remember
I blocked it out apparently.
WAOW, and I came from WAOW and ABC in Wausau, where I worked 1 year after I graduated from Madison. And Bob Gessling, everyone knows Bob. Is he still the general manager at KOW?
He's retired now.
He did retire.
Bob,
awesome. Good.
Yep, he retired. Yep.
He was awesome. But I was working there for just about a year, and I always wanted to get back to Madison. And I saw a position at the time was TAC Communications.
Yep.
Before it became Shockley, and there was a position for a morning news director. I'm like, I can get this, my chance to get back to Madison. And I talked to Bob, and he said, come on up. So I drove 2.5 hours from Wausau to Madison, and he brought me in his office. Remember way back in the dungeons of the station?
Yeah.
And I sat in his office, talked to him for 6 minutes, and drove 2.5 hours. 6 minutes, he's like, well, I got to go. Thanks for coming. I'll be in touch. And I just remember thinking, I didn't get it. I drove all the way back to Wausau, directed the news at night. And he called me the next day. He's like, we're offering you the job. I'm like, I can't believe you're offering me the job. And I said, why? He said, the Chiron machine that you're working with in Wausau, we're getting that in 2 months. And so you'll be able to teach us how to use that. I'm like, perfect. So
wow.
That was it. So my recollection is July 29th was the first week we did our demo, and we went live in news with 27 First News on August 5th, 1996.
Wow.
I didn't even know that.
That's better. That's good. We have to write that down, Carrie, for our
I'm writing it down, and that'd be good for us to know.
Yes.
So at AOW in Wausau, were you a technical director there then, or were you directing?
No, I was a audio operator, graphics person, and then I learned how to direct like the last 6 months I was there. So that's where I got my director training, was in Wausau, Wisconsin. And I met
were you
Chris
doing
Lazat
the
there.
evening? Oh, you did.
Yeah, I did my shift there was Wednesday through Sunday, second shift in Wausau. And that was another, besides getting back to Madison, that was another reason. I'm like, okay, I know I'm going to have to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning and work 27 First News, but I'll get my weekends back. And that was so important to me, because I missed out on so many things that first year. I'm like, okay, at least I get my weekends back.
Yep, we've all been
I
there
100% agree.
Yeah. No, but Chris Lazat he just started doing sports there at the time. So he and I became very close friends, and to this day are still close. I talked to him 2-3 weeks ago when I was golfing Dana Hills. He found out I resigned, and he gave me a call. We chatted a little bit, but he's selling at the Fox station in Madison, and yeah, it's a lot of good people you run across over the years, and
totally
I've been able to stay in touch with.
Well, and you get back here quite often. It seems like I've seen you on Facebook.
Yes. Yeah, I was there for the Alabama game that weekend, which was
you and everyone else,
game,
right? Yeah,
yeah, it was sweet. They're so much fun to watch these days, and but I got to see a lot of close friends and catch up with some people. But Madison, it's Sandy and I still talk about that still feels like home. We've been in Iowa for about 14 years, and Milwaukee for about 10 years, but Madison still feels like home.
And we have room went for to college in Madison.
Well, I'm sorry, Carrie.
You went to college in Madison, right?
I did, yeah. I was part of the 5-year plan in comm arts, and I started as an engineer for 2 years and realized I'm not an engineer. And thank goodness my son got the talent that I never had. But yeah, my other passion going into college was I wanted to get into television. Preferably ESPN is where I thought I'd end up at some point in my life, and never happened. But I just wanted to be part of television. I was always just excited about the whole industry growing up, learning about it, and I got to get in there somehow, some way.
Well, and I remember way back, Steve, even when you were directing the program that we did, First News, you did a lot of things. Like you said, I mean, we would take stuff to you, you would do the graphics, you would, you'd come up with ideas for audio.
I always did promotions the entire time. So my shift was 4 to 9 with the morning crew. And then I jumped into Jill Genter's department from 9 to noon. Worked with her and Greg Shaw.
Previous podcast. Go back and listen to Jill Genter.
It's on both. And then that's where I met Sandy, because Sandy replaced Greg Schroffnagel.
That's right. That's right.
That's right. Sandy, your beautiful bride.
Wonderful wife, who we got to see just a little bit ago. She also worked at KOW, and they have two grown sons now.
That's right.
And almost 2 out of college, right?
Almost 2 out of college, yeah. I was gonna say they're almost off the payroll, but yeah, are they ever off the payroll? I don't know, probably not.
Even back then, when you were doing all of those other things, you always I remember talking to you about this. You always kind of had the dream of being a station manager, general manager. That was something you always wanted to do, I think.
It sure was. Yeah, no, it's a great memory, Dan. So yeah, I remember when I just got into business and I got to know, gosh, I can't think of his name, the general manager in Wausau, Wisconsin. Oh, it's going to come to me. I'll come down around. He had a white hair, Lauren Zorsted. Do you remember? Did you ever meet him? He was the one that was in charge of the WIA broadcast, and then he would, Pat and Bob would run that. Anyways, I met Lauren, then of course I met Bob Miller, and Bob's awesome. Oh my gosh, we saw Bob in Ireland a few years ago.
You did?
We saw him and Pam, and just they're great people. But I was inspired by their leadership. I'm like, someday I want to be a general manager. I remember when I went from the newscast, direct the newscast into sales at WKOW, and I started, I think, June 2nd of 2000, because we got married that year. And I interviewed with Carrie Johnson and Bob, and they were just saying, hey, why do you want to get into sales? And I said, I know everything about the TV station, from news to production, promotions and everything, but I don't know the business side. And if someday I want to be a general manager, I told it to Bob Miller right to his face as I was interviewing for sales. He said, good. And when I became general manager, I got weird dates in my head. November 28th, 2016, I called Bob, or I texted Bob and said, finally, 16 years after I told you I want to be a general manager, I'm a general manager. So that was, he said, congrats. And that was pretty cool. That was a big moment. Yeah.
Can we go back for a moment to your directing days? Yeah. And would you describe for our listeners and viewers, like when you're sitting in the booth, what are all the things you're doing? Pause. What is this you're showing?
There he is.
What are we looking at? Oh my gosh, look at that poncho.
Oh,
look at you. Goodness. You had that cool poncho.
I wish I had that
We're
poncho.
Looking so business-like there.
That was awesome. Who's in the background?
Look who's lurking in the background.
Who is that?
It's Brad Brokaw.
Well, I got there at 3, and I thought, or maybe it's 3:30-ish. I think I got up at 3, but I thought did you get there like at 2 in the morning, both of you?
Yeah, I'd get there at 1:30 sometimes.
In the beginning, we got there at 2. And then if we were the producers, because when we were between producers, we did it ourselves. So then we took turns. That was like 12:30 we'd get
Yeah, I
in.
thought that was like a midnight
But then
start
I
for
feel like we were
yeah.
kind of pushing it as the years went on
Yeah,
and
yeah.
getting a little
We got this.
later. Yeah.
It was
So going back to
fine.
Carrie, to
It's
your question
fine.
about the
Yes.
control room, like directing, and that I love directing live TV,
Hmm.
I you get both were so good at live TV and delivering the news, and that's one thing I could never do. Like even being on camera right now talking to you, I'm a little uncomfortable being on camera. Just never
You
great on
seem
camera.
very comfortable.
Well, thank
See, you
you for
just
saying, yeah.
smile through it all, I guess.
That's good.
Yeah.
But behind the scenes and just having that live newscast and doing the graphics and we're going through the script and video calls and camera calls and talking to Jamie on because Jamie's on the two-way and he's by himself in the field. And that was, I love that live TV because it was 2 hours, but you go like that because you're always going. And that's to this day, that's what I always love about our business is it was different every day. It was exciting. And it just like, I never looked at my watch like, okay, how much time do we have left? No, the newscast would start and it'd be over just like that. It was, and the thrill of, and again, all the excitement in the control room and giving the cues, giving the calls and working with the team, that was fun. Live TV's fun. Recording things, it's fine, but it's, you always know you can go back and do a few more edits and that is exciting.
People always ask me that too, and they probably ask you this too, Carrie. Like, do you miss it? And the thing I always tell people that I miss is the show. It was the live show part of it. It was the adrenaline buzz of getting the show on the air, getting it going. And like you said, hopefully you did it correctly and you had a good show, and then you got up and did it again the next day. And we only looked at our watches because we were like, how much more time do we have left?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Like, do I have time to go to the bathroom or no?
Yeah.
Right.
I think there was a point in time, the first 5 years of knowing both of you, I talked more in your ear than I talked to you directly face to face, right?
We don't even know what you look like, Steve. We just know you from our IFB.
All right, Dan, we got to drop the next story. Carrie, okay, got to cut 30 seconds.
And I'm sure it served you well too, Steve, because you were so even-keeled and even-tempered as a director. I mean, obviously some directors could get pretty, pretty fired up sometimes, but you always were very even-keeled. And we came to you with a lot of crazy ideas sometimes. Like, well,
that's what made it exciting though.
Yeah,
crazy.
The 27 News Vault, and you and Jamie went and did. We talked to Jamie about that. You guys went out to New York, and
we did. Yes, yeah. And before that, we covered Michael Finley. He was a rookie or second-year player for the Mavericks, and we went up to Minneapolis, watched him play there, and got to meet him. Did a one-on-one. So those were fun things to do, and that's what made it exciting, right? That's why again, that's what brought you back and got you in that door every day was, okay, what do we do that's fun and cool today?
Yep.
Right.
Totally.
Well, and not everybody has that open mindset that you had when we'd come to you with crazy ideas that we want to go live from the park and we're going to ice skate, Steve. And you're like, you'd just be like, okay, it's more like, okay, let's just figure it out.
No, it became so natural because we did it every day, right? We became pretty good at it.
Yeah. Secondhand. So how was sales for you then when you switched out of production, out of promotion? And then you went to sales. Was there a big adjustment for you?
Yeah, it sure was. I'll say the best thing about working our shift though with the 27 First News was to this day, I wake up at 4:30 with an alarm every day, right? Because
really?
we got up so early, and so so when I started my sales career, I was usually like the first one in the office, like whether it be in Milwaukee or Madison or Cedar Rapids, because I'm like, how about 4:30? But it was so that I gave me more time to learn the trade, learn the different things of sales. But I just told this story literally yesterday because we'll get into this a little bit. I've been interviewing if you as you both know. I remember like 6 months into my sales career at WKOW and coming home and telling Sandy, this isn't working. Like this is the worst thing I ever did in my life. And just, it didn't have a lot of success and felt like a failure. And then we had this new program that started called Image Plus. And I was like, out of the 8 reps at the station, I finished second in sales in that fall. And I just that was 9 months in. I remember like, this is awesome. This is the decision. So there's that 3-month window where like it started to click. I started to get my pitch, understanding the business, but it's hard the first 6 months when you're just green and don't know anything about the business side. And so that was difficult. And then from there, I don't want to say it became easy, but it's just like directing the more news, it became more natural. Like, oh, like rejection. I don't, people want to buy me. That's fine. That's fine. I'll talk, call someone else. I'll talk to someone else.
Right. You don't take it so personally.
No. And in the beginning, I did take it personally. And so just learning my pitch, learning the style, learning the different traits of the business, and it became easier. Sales is never easy, but it certainly became easier. And then, and I thought I'd be a sales rep throughout my life. And then managers positions came, and led to where I got to today.
So you went from Madison then as an account executive and right to ISN as an account executive.
That's right. Yep.
So you wanted to get to a bigger market, or?
Yeah, it's just a better opportunity.
Yep.
Frankly, I mean, my income almost doubled when I went to Milwaukee, and that was a big part because we had young kids. We had Sam was born, Max was due soon, and okay, if I'm going to provide for the family, I want to provide a better life, and so that was just like, okay, how can I make more income? And WISN provided that, and so I started there November 4th, 2002.
Wow, you are like Rain Man.
There it is.
All these dates.
Mr. Dates, times.
Loved it. That was a great team too, and there's still friends on that team. There's still work that I'm close to and talk to and almost text on a monthly basis because
was there a learning curve going from the Madison market to Milwaukee?
A little bit, but not really. I think I had that first month where I was like intimidated. Ooh, I'm in a big market now. Ooh, people are scared. It's the same job. And you realize like, okay, just do what I did in Madison and do it here in Milwaukee, and I'll stand out. And it worked out. Yeah.
Was Jamie Glenberg already in sales in Milwaukee when he went there?
He and I were like, I think he started sales like a month after I did, or a month before I did. It was really close, and we weren't talking to each other. Just hadn't talked to each other for a couple of months, 3 months, and then he called me one day. He's like, I remember him saying, "Hey, guess what? I'm going to start in sales." I'm like, "Hey, guess what? I started sales last week." And and then when I moved to Milwaukee, certainly we saw each other quite a bit when he's at ESPN radio. Still, I play. And again, I was just saying, I get up early, like, so I'm at the gym every morning, even though I haven't worked in 5 weeks. I'm there at 5 o'clock every morning.
The summer of Steve, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it's summer of Steve. It's right. It's been great, man. And he's like, "Don't get too comfortable." I'm like, "Oh, this is actually kind of fun." Right. But no, I go to the gym every day. It's just like I tell people, it's like having those people like have a cup of coffee in the morning. And I'm just having a cup of coffee. I'm just going. It's what relaxes me. It settles me down. I feel good about myself before I come home and pound a bag of Doritos and get into self-depression. But you
got to be good to yourself too. Yeah. So
That's
then you were in. Let's go back to Milwaukee. Now you're in Milwaukee, and then I mentioned you took a little detour over to Discover Media Works, and was that because that was a management job? And Discover Media Works for people. Well, tell people what Discover is, first of all.
Yeah, I was a account executive for about 2.5 years at WISN, and Bob Miller, who we talked about earlier, he became
who is a podcast guest.
Is a podcast, and he became president of Discover Media Works. Mark Rose had hired him, and so they were looking for a sales director, and Bob's like, the first person I want to talk to is Steve Rohrer, and because Sandy was already working there as a producer, and Bob, I remember Sandy told me the story. Bob brought Sandy into his office and said, "Do you mind if I hire your husband to be the director of sales here?" And she said, "That's fine." So Bob called me and it gave me a good opportunity, and it was fun. That was a good. I was there about 1.5 years, and honestly, who knows if I'd still be there to this day. But they had moved their offices from downtown Milwaukee to Madison,
right?
And because Bob was commuting every day, and they had a lot of business out of Madison too. Did a lot of state stuff, and they just, I guess, incorrectly assumed that, I love Madison, I'm going to move back to Madison. But by that time, our kids were getting a little older, and we were settled in. We liked our neighborhood, and I just said, I don't want to move. And Sandy's like, I don't want to move either. So Channel 12 called me back, and that's when they made me the digital sales manager.
And I mean, again, there's the whole change of TV sales. Like, you got into TV sales and you're selling airtime, and then during that time it transitioned to digital sales. What was that like for you?
That was weird, because I think that was in 2006, late 2006, when I got hired, and I was the first digital sales manager Hearst had hired in the entire company. They didn't even have like anyone at the corporate level. And Pete Monfrey, who was my boss at the time and still a mentor to this day, hired me to be the digital sales manager. I remember my first day at the office, and I went to Pete's office, like, okay, what do you want me to do? He's like, I don't know, figure it out. So I'm like, okay, I'll figure it out. So I just started making some calls. People I knew were in the business and the digital side, and just came up with a strategy and a plan about how we're going to sell our website and sell some. We weren't streaming at the time, and ABC had a new video player that they had for next day. They were the very first. I don't remember that first network that had you could watch their broadcast programs the next day for free. Yeah. And it was on our ABC video player. So we started selling that, and I just basically crashed and learned on my own, and was first at the department, first in the company, and built it up. And that was pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah. What skills did you gain by having to chart your own course for digital media?
It was very similar to when I got into sales the first time. Is just learning a lot on my own. And at the time there was a few things, there weren't a lot of things available online like there is today, like on YouTube. Mm-hmm. So it was a skill set of basically, okay, what is a banner ad? What are the dimensions? What are the sizes? What is SEM? What is SEO? What is, geo-targeting? And the mobile sites started coming out, like, and that wasn't really available at the time. So I learned, okay, what can you sell on a mobile site, on a news site? And then working with our corporate team and trying to figure out ways, okay, what are some ad placements we can put here and there to get some digital offerings. But it was really starting from scratch, a whole new department. And that taught me basically that I still had a skill set to learn new things. I wasn't an old dog yet. I was like, okay, figure this thing out. Yeah.
You weren't old news yet, Steve.
No, not yet. Now I am. Now I'm crazy old. Yeah. Back then.
Well, I remember when that all started happening, and like you're talking about banner ad sizes and all the different ad sizes. And I was working in production at this time, and that was a big learning curve. That whole part of it, kind of learning like what should an ad look like in a digital space. And now it's just so commonplace. It's just you see it every day of your life. Mm-hmm. But back then it seemed so foreign, just such a completely different world, because, we grew up with TV and radio. Mm-hmm. And now it's like on the computer.
Well, I mean, we didn't even know what to charge people.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
We had a general idea, okay, how many impressions these ads were delivering on a monthly basis. I don't think even at the time we were measuring click-through rates and bounce rates and all that stuff. So it's just like, we were just kind of almost guessing. Yeah. And we based a lot of our cost per thousands off the cost per thousands of the TV universe and try to translation that. But knowing at the same time, well, people aren't going to probably give you the same price because there's no audio and video at the time. These banner ads, eventually there was video advertising. Now there's CTV and streaming ads, which of course you can charge sometimes more than you can for broadcast because it's more targeted. But it was just an unknown, Dan, and just what's the value of it, and is it working? Like, we didn't always know. It was a guess.
Do you feel like the TV industry in general was at the leading edge of that, or do you think it was trailing a little bit?
Oh, for sure. The digital side trailing for sure. Yeah. Newspapers were well ahead. I mean, you think of like companies like JS Online. Yeah. I mean, they were just like, okay, I had heard at one point in time, and again, anyone can fact check me. I might be wrong. I'd heard their this classified ads at one point in the early 90s was $80 to $100 million in revenue a year. And by the early 2000s, it was just like less than 10. And so they had to transition that, basically all that classified business into an online site where people could still search and find their needs, but they never could, I think, get back to that, nor could any newspaper company get back to the level of income that where they own that classified area that became Google and Yahoo and Craigslist.
Scott Klug talked about that in our podcast. Yeah. We'll put a link at the bottom. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
If you remember to tell me to do that.
I'll send it to you, Dan.
Thank you. Well, and that changed news in general. I mean, Scott talked a lot about that, and I'm sure it changed TV news too.
It did. Yeah. It was something. I remember just the whole transition to digital, like even, okay, now we're going to live stream our newscast. Like, ooh, but I just remember even back in my WISN days, where we'd break, remember the old days, a story would break at 3:00 in the afternoon, and like, okay, they have top story at 5 and 6. And then someone said, hey, maybe we should put that on our website at 3:30. Like, no.
We don't want to spoil it.
No. People find out at 5 and 6. And now obviously we transitioned to a day where, I mean, the news breaks, you got to get that out as quickly as possible. And you want to be the first and get all the clicks and the impressions and all that, which of course drives impressions and ad revenue. But back in the day, I remember early digital days, we'd hold off on things.
Yeah,
because we didn't want to lower we thought it'd ruin our newscast, or ratings, I should say, not the content, but the quality, but ruin the ratings. And ultimately that's what's led to today, where ratings for news are a fraction what they used to be in all newscasts and all day parts. I remember NBC and WTMJ for Milwaukee, they had ER on Thursday nights back in the day.
Yeah.
And it would do ER would do almost a 40 household rating, almost 40% of the entire universe was watching ER in Milwaukee. Yeah. And then they have this, 10 o'clock news that it still probably hold a 25, 30. And now if you have a newscast that does like a 4 rating or a 3 rating or a 5 rating, you're doing pretty well in the today's world of television.
And what's the demographic of those people watching that?
Oh, I mean, it's mostly older. I mean, you're talking people our age, a little bit older. I still watch news, and I'm sure you both still watch news, but it's the average age demographic. I think when I first got into sales, I think there was 45, 46, and now it's like 55, 56.
Yeah. Right.
It's transitioned quite a bit. The one thing that's stronger or as strong today as it was back in our day is sports. Live sports is still drives crazy revenue, does crazy ratings. And even in Iowa, the 13 years I was in Iowa driving the ratings, the sports ratings have gone up the last 4 or 5 years. And I think, part of that is obviously how much especially the NFL does such a good job with the branding and building that core audience and reaching out not only to men, but men and women and of all ages and now all countries. The Packers and the Eagles played in Brazil, and heard there's like 20 million NFL fans in Brazil now. That expanded. So they're in that also along with, I'll say gambling.
Yeah, I was going to say gambling is huge.
Second, gambling went live in Iowa, which we were one of the early adopter states. I think it was 2019. That's when I saw ratings start to go up, like in all live sports, not just football, but Major League Baseball, college football. And I'm just like, why aren't people watching Oklahoma State, Texas Tech in Des Moines? And then you think about it, probably because they have a little money in the game.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So I think that's helped, and it's, I don't know, I'm mixed on that. I'm not going to say I've never gambled on sports. I have the sports apps on my phone, but I just, it's that fine line between, what is pure in sports and what is good for society and what's good for television. It's great for television, but it's great for television when if viewers are going bankrupt over. I'm not saying they are, but I'm not going to go to extremes. But that's
right.
It's an addictive personality that gambling is, and that that's a concern of mine.
Let's talk about you being the general manager of a station or several stations. Was it one or several?
One in Des Moines for 8.5 years, and then I picked up the Cedar Rapids station, where as a director of sales, I picked up that for about a year, the CBS and Fox. So at one time I had 3 stations under my hat.
Wow.
And so was it what you had imagined, or was it different?
It was a little different. It was different because, again, what the Bob Miller days and the Lawrence Ziegler days, or Ziegler days, I forgot his last name. It was.
I think it's Ziegler, Lauren Ziegler.
Yeah. It was just more. It was you sit in that corner office, and I think my understanding is you have your meetings, but you're more involved in the community and stuff like that. And now it became more hands-on. Like Bob Miller. I love the guy. Never really had to walk in the sales department and talk about sales. He talked about what have to sell, and a lot of general managers, including myself, to this day, are now asked to sell. As part of like most media companies, when they hire a general manager position, they wanted someone with a sales background. And so I feel like when that happens, you're neglecting maybe another department that you should be paying attention to, or another department you're just not getting as much attention. And I get it, because that's where the revenue is, and that's where my expertise was, and a lot of general managers' expertises are. they want them driving revenue. So it became different where it became, instead of like a station head, you were more like a sales head that had a, influence on all departments, but it was less focused on all the departments.
Well, and TV, I mean, again, the change of TV too, you talked about it when you first got into TV and came to Madison, you were working for Terry Shockley. Terry Shockley was local. He owned the station. He was a local guy. And then that changed over the years. And I imagine that kind of has happened at the stations you've been to. And how has that kind of, it seems like there's larger and larger companies eating up some of these smaller companies. What has that done to the broadcasting industry?
Yeah, Terry and Sandy bought TAC Communications, and they had stations in obviously Madison, La Crosse, Eau Claire, Wausau, and then Rochester. And it was a small station group, but they, but having an owner under the roof of the station that we worked in, KOW, that just doesn't exist now. I mean, there's Nexstar, there's Sinclair, where I was at for 13 and a half years, and then Hearst, and then there's Tegna, and then Cox. And that's probably about 95% of the stations. Allen Media Group, 95% of the stations in the country. And like when I started Sinclair in 2011, I think there was 56 TV stations under Sinclair's belt. When I left, there's about 200.
Whoa.
And Nexstar has about I think they have maybe 215-ish. It's in a number. Tegna, I think, is 100. So it's just like there's so much consolidation. I remember like even just like a 3-year span, like Sinclair, like, they bought 6 more stations, bought 10 more stations, bought 12 more stations, bought 10, like just like it's like almost like weekly we're adding 6, 10 more stations to our group. It's just all these smaller companies like Shockley Communications just got bought up and got paid, and which is great. Those companies worked hard and got their money, and then just the consolidation of departments.
What's driving that, do you think?
It's all about ROI. I mean, if you can have, instead of having like 5 stations here and 5 stations here and 5, and you got 3 different, HR vice presidents. Now you got one that oversees all the stations, and just the consolidation of products and resources that drives it. Yeah.
So, and most recently, you were vice president and general manager at KDSM, QGAN, and KGAN. all of those letters. What kind of made you decide to move on from that?
Yeah, no, it was difficult because I had a tough conversation with my wife about 6 weeks ago, Sandy, and I've been in the business 29 years, and it's the love. As I said earlier, I wanted to be in this industry. I wanted to be in this business, and it was so great to me for 29 years. But ultimately, that love and that spark, that's getting in my step, was no longer there. And the people I worked with were amazing in both Cedar Rapids and Des Moines, and I felt like I was letting them down, to an extent, because I was being selfish and looking out for myself. This is something I preached as a manager and general manager the last 20 years, is that if you don't like what you're doing and you're unhappy, please find something else to do, because you're not making it easier for yourself or the company you're working for, and find that new passion. And I was getting to that point. And so I just had a conversation with Sandy and said, the spark's gone. I got to find a new direction in life. What if? And she said, I support you. So I said, thank you. And we had dinner, and I gave my resignation a couple of days later, and I've now been out officially for 5 weeks. I will say I started delivering papers at the age of 8. I'm 52 years old. I've never had 5 weeks off in my life in the last 44 years. And it feels weird, but it actually feels kind of good. I went up to Two Rivers, Wisconsin, visit my mom for a couple of days. I saw a couple of college friends last week. We got a couple of rounds of golf in. Been just doing things that I haven't done in a while, and I'm still looking for a new job, still interviewing and applying, and that's different too, as you can imagine. But
it's been a while, right?
Yeah, because I haven't looked for a job because like I said, last time I looked for a job was talking to Bob Gessling in '96, and then ISN called me and it brought me over to Milwaukee, and then Cedar Rapids called me, brought me to Milwaukee, and director of sales, of course, Discover Media Works, and then Des Moines called me. So like people were calling me my whole career. And now it's like, oh, I got to find my own job. I got to create my own value again.
Well, that's rare and awesome that everybody was calling you along the way and that you weren't knocking on doors. What do you attribute that to?
I want to be low key here, but I mean, I worked hard, and people recognized it, and I had success, and pretty much everywhere I've been at. And so I think and that's really what you want from all your employees, your staff. You want someone that's going to come in, give it their all, be passionate about the business, whatever it be, sales or news or marketing or promotions, and put a good day's work in, and be professional. And that's I think that was most of my career, and people seem to like that, I guess.
Yeah, they like it when people are successful.
Successful and delightful to work with.
Right.
I mean, I'm sure like Dan and I can attest that you were just always a joy to be around. Like you're kind and you're thoughtful and you're not a reactive person. And I think not everyone's like that. So I'm sure people saw that value in you too.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And no, that's something that I've also preached and teached over my years, is just, okay, there's going to be bad days and there's going to be really bad days, but how you react to those days, situations is what's going to be what the outcome is. And if you react and raise the level and raise the intensity, the outcome's going to be worse. So handle the problem, deal with it, figure out a solution, move on professionally, address what needs to be addressed, make sure it doesn't happen again, and then we'll move on. But I've worked with, I'm sure you have too, you worked with screamers and people that tantrums, and like, what does that solve? Because the problem still exists, but now you've elevated the energy to a point where people are uncomfortable, and it's not fun. So I've never been that way, and hopefully I never will be.
Are you an award person, Steve? Are you obviously there's always kind of awards that happen in broadcasting, and was that important to you?
No.
And if no,
title awards. I mean, that's a couple of people who said, like, I can't believe you're stepping away from a vice president title. I'm like, I don't care about my title. Like, it's cool that I have it and whatever, but that's not. I'm not defined by my title. I'm not defined by my position, my role. I mean, I love for people that think that with that title, I'm able to do good things in the community and help out nonprofits and do all that. And people can look up to me that way, but don't look up to me because I have a VP in front of my name. It means nothing. And awards, I mean, it's great when people recognize. And I was recognized with the Character Award of the state of Iowa, the Character Awards about 3 years ago for a champion, their 6 pillars of character. And I thought that's pretty cool and humble as can be. And it's one of the greatest things I ever received in my entire life, to receive an Iowa Character Award.
That's where I was going with that, Steve. I was going to say, first of all, your answer did not surprise me because that's the answer I expected. And secondly, that Iowa Character Award, to me, of all of the awards people can get, it's those awards like that.
Yeah.
An award about doing good for other people in the communities that you serve. I think that's a huge accomplishment, and congratulations to you. And since it happened 4 years ago, it fits with old news because we're just breaking that story now.
That's right. It's breaking news to us.
It's news to
Put
us.
up a graphic.
Can you make that for us?
I remember though a spot you did when you would direct and then go into promotions.
Yeah.
Remember the WIAA basketball spot?
Oh yeah, I won an award for that one. Yeah.
Well, I was gonna say, I think you won an award for that, and it was so sweet. It was like a little boy shooting hoops, and then flash forward to it's WIAA boys basketball.
Yeah.
Do you still have a copy?
I have it on VHS somewhere in the house. Yes.
So the question is, can we get it off of that?
It was so sweet. That was awesome. I remember I wanted to get across the message to these people watching this promo that these kids that are playing high school basketball were kids with dreams at the age of 5 and 6, shooting in their driveway. And I think I had a couple of images of a kid playing in a barn where they had an old hoop in a barn in the country outside of Madison. And because that was my experience. I was really making that personal, like shooting my driveway, 3, 2, 1, have that dream in your head going to the state. And I never made it to state, but both my boys made it to the state championship game in Norwalk here in Des Moines.
I followed that on Facebook.
Yeah. Did you? And Sam unfortunately, he lost by 1 when he was a senior. And I have a picture of him. I think of this day. He's holding the run-up trophy at midcourt, surrounded by his teammates, and all their heads were down and like, dude, what it was
Aw,
great accomplishment. And
yeah.
then a year later, then my other son won a championship for the same high school. So that was pretty awesome.
Oh, that's
What a feeling.
amazing.
So to that, so your
Yeah.
point, Carrie, glad you remember that. That was one of the
Mm-hmm.
favorite promos that I ever created because that was personal to me, message.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you
that's why
could
it came
tell.
across. It was yeah, that heart came across.
Yeah, yeah,
I always kind of thought of it as like Jimmy Chitwood from,
yeah.
Hoosiers,
Yeah,
kind of that
definitely.
feel to it where
Yeah.
people, the whole commercial felt that way. It
Hmm.
was great.
Well, thank you.
Hey, and we're to the part now where
Yeah,
we need to wrap up a little bit because we don't
yeah,
want to keep you all day. You've
yeah,
talked
yeah.
about a couple of things. I always ask people their first job, their best or worst job, and something they're still
Mhm.
thirsting for. You talked about your first job being you were a paperboy.
That was Paperboy.
At
Yeah, I hope
age
my
8.
my oldest, I had two older brothers and older sister, and my dad was pretty adamant when we were young, like you're gonna work, and
Yep.
Mm.
she was, I think, 11, so she was old enough to have paper route. I was not old enough, but I was old enough to help her, of course.
Yeah.
So I helped her deliver
Oh.
papers for a couple of years, and then I had my own paper route at the age of 10. And then when I was 16, I had two jobs. When I was in
Mm.
college, I worked through a college. No different than, again, a lot of people of our generation, and just that was always instilled with me from my dad, and looked up to him. He passed in 20 day after Christmas in 2015. So that's one of the
Oh.
sad things about becoming GM. He never saw me become a
Mm.
GM. He knew I wanted to
Oh.
be one, but that work ethic he instilled in me and my siblings. And I look at my family and like, oh my gosh, my mom, by the way, mom as much credit as dad, but
Mm.
mom stayed, she worked, but she stayed at home and she gave all the values, and she showed us how to work hard too. But just seeing dad go to work every day and never bringing it home, but you knew, some days were bad, some days were good, and that work, but he was always at work. He always showed up. And that's why, like, even to this day, like, I show up. I
Mm.
remember in Wausau, I was playing football one night, and I broke my collarbone, and I had to work the next day. And I
Oh.
was running the audio board, so I used both my hands across the audio board, and I had to lean because I could only put my fingers to this side because I couldn't lift my
Oh,
arm up. So I did the audio board,
Oh.
but I'm like, but I got to go to work. I
Yeah.
can't move my arm, but I have to run the audio board. I go. So that's just the work ethic that my dad really instilled in us. And I look at my siblings and like, dang, like I feel like I'm the black sheep of the family.
hey, how about your best job? What was your best job, Steve?
Wait,
This is
I
a
love
loaded
television, so all
question.
those are
No.
great jobs. The 27 First News, I mean, that was as fun as any job. But yeah, I think even like working at McDonald's in high school with my best friends,
Mm.
five of us on the grill, four of the people, my best friends at the counter, and that Saturday afternoon rush, and we're working in unison and just
Mm.
giggling and giving each other a hard time, but doing the job. That was
Yeah.
being part of a team. That's always my favorite job, and working with people. But there's been so many good things, Dan. I just, gosh, I love Milwaukee. I love working Cedar Rapids. I love here in Des Moines. It just, I hate to
Yeah,
say, I don't think there's the best. I think they've all been great. They really have.
Mm.
Yeah.
great
That's
answer. You should run for
wonderful.
office,
Yeah.
Steve.
So
So,
I want to bring a couple things to both of you. So
yeah,
again, remember the morning crew. So when we first started, we had Margaret
yep.
Mhm.
producing, you two. Was Bill Shirk was he the early morning reporter for before Jamie got hired?
No,
No, it was Jenny Leoto.
Jenny
Jennifer
Lee.
Jennifer
Leoto.
Leoto.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's right. And then we had John Brainy teaching, remember?
Yep. John Veraney was
Oh
there.
yeah.
Jim
Yeah.
Hermanson doing audio.
Correct. Yep. Jim
Uh,
and
Mark Fazio
Foz. Yep.
and
I don't know if
Ken
was
were
he
doing
there every
tapes.
day, Foz? I
No,
can't remember.
he and Ken would switch up a little bit. Remember Ken,
Oh,
Mm.
yep. Ken
engineer?
Yeah.
Geidinger.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I just think about that crew, and because we were the first, I think we were the first morning show in Madison, were we not? Or am
No,
I wrong? No, we weren't. Okay.
at
Channel
27
3
we were.
was
Yeah.
yeah, we
Okay,
were the first one
27
at
first,
our
but it was
station.
a
Yeah.
new crew, and I just remember having so much fun with that crew. And I remember the Hermanson with the bumps. Remember the music bumps, like "Break My
Like going
Stride," or which other one with by Bruce Springsteen? Springsteen.
Boy, I don't remember this.
What was Dancing in the Dark? And the lyrics like, "I get up in the evening, I ain't got nothing to say. I go to bed in the morning," and I was like, "That's our song. That's our song." And he played a bump a lot for us.
Boy, I don't even remember that. I think
I
we were.
know. I was
bumps.
wondering if we could even hear it. Like,
Yeah.
would we have been able to hear it?
Yeah, it went over the air. Yeah, there were bumps, and then, I remember Franny was so, he was so stoic and just do his job. But
Mhm.
I remember him like be in front of me, like going
Oh
easy
yeah.
like that.
Yeah, he's getting into it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, I
that was
remember
fun
we always
mornings.
talk about this. Like you probably remember this too. Like remember at the
Yeah,
beginning we had like 65 tapes, 65 three-quarter
Yeah.
inch
How
tapes that we
long
had
could
to
our
run back
arms
to you
parts.
be?
guys. Yeah, that was crazy.
And I remember like one time where it was Ken or whoever had the tapes back there, and we're like first half hour, and they're stacked like 15 high in
Yeah.
order, and like it fell over. And
Oh,
like we didn't have video for like
Oh.
10 minutes because Ken's like, I don't even know which tape is like you got him labeled, but like he's reading through. I'm just like talking to you. You're like, okay, no video like the next 10 minutes. Just read. Oh
Just act
man.
it
yeah,
out. Just
it was
imagine and act it out.
fine.
And then we
I
went
just
to what was the video company the was it wasn't Nexstar. What was
it was
It
first
yeah,
News Star.
News
News
Star.
Newstar.
And
Star.
Bob
Newstar. Thank you.
Miller
Yeah.
was talking a
Yeah,
lot
Bob.
about that. Yeah,
And how
because
great
that's
was
his
that?
company. Yeah, well, we
Yeah,
were we were pioneers there.
that's right.
And he confirmed that for us. I said, am I imagining or
Yeah,
were we the guinea pigs? He's like, oh, you were the guiney pigs.
yeah.
Yeah. So we just
That
had the
changed
tapes as the
everything.
backup, but it sure did change
Yeah.
everything and really taught us how to edit the
Hmm.
way we still edit today,
That's right.
doing it
Yeah.
digitally.
And
Well, and it's
wasn't
just
KOW like the third
yeah.
station in the country to go HD
Yeah,
in
it
2000?
was up there. Bob talked about
Yeah.
that too, I believe, where
Hmm.
Like top,
yeah,
maybe
it
top
was
five or something like that. I remember that with
Yeah.
a giant HD monitor in
Yeah, and we were kind of
2000.
like, why do we need to see our skin
Yeah.
closer? Like,
yeah.
back up. I don't think we need
Yeah.
we don't need that detail. And I was only in my 20s then.
Yeah.
Good grief.
I remember like you were just able to come up. We changed that show so many times over the
Yeah, we did.
years in the
Yeah.
5 years or 6 years we were doing it. But
Yeah.
like we went from sitting on the set to
Mhm.
the living room,
I
the
remember that.
living room
Yeah.
set that we kind of
And
created out of whatever.
Zach would steal the couch from the
Yeah.
lobby.
And then you would create these graphics. I remember we had like these news headlines and you created graphics that had like the news of the day. And it's very common
Yeah.
now, but I think
Yeah. Oh,
back
yeah. Yeah.
then
That's right.
we were kind of breaking some new ground, at least
It
for us
was.
in the
It
first
was.
news
Yeah.
world. So, and we had to have, that was when we were straight to the point. So we had to have like
Yeah.
20-second stories and it was like bam, 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 bam,
Mhm.
bam.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So,
That's why we so many tapes.
right, exactly.
Right. You only get 20 seconds, then you on to
Yeah.
the next tape.
Yeah.
And New Star made it nice because then we didn't have to
Yeah.
record, we did the same story 3 times sometimes, and we
Mhm.
had to have 3 tapes. Well,
That's
New
right.
Star made it where we could just have one backup and then the 3 EDLs,
Yeah.
or whatever
Mhm.
they're called now. I don't know, but
Yeah.
just the
Mhm.
digital title, and it made it so much better.
Mhm.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
was nice. And we could
Carrie, do
actually
you
comb our
remember?
hair.
It was Carrie.
Yeah.
Do you remember the Christmas tape? Dan's version of "Cheers, Cheers, Cheers." Do you guys remember that?
I do. I remember
No.
that.
Tony Galley's email to the staff about
Yes,
Cheers.
yes. We called it, what was it?
And
Memo
Dan
Piece
was wearing like a
Theater.
robe and he's sitting in a chair smoking a cigar.
Oh, yes.
I think of
Yes.
Dan. I think about that. That would be one of the funniest SNL skits today.
Yeah.
Cheers, cheers,
Cheers,
cheers.
cheers. That was Tony probably has never forgiven me for that.
Oh no.
We took a email that Tony sent to the whole news department about chairs being stolen and taken to different spots, and we made that a Memo Piece Theater. Memo Piece Theater.
Yes, I remember. I remember.
I wish I could find that.
Oh
Oh
God.
man.
And you read it so seriously, like it was so funny.
Yeah,
Oh,
like
that's
in a
great.
smoking jacket.
Yeah.
I remember I think that was the year that it was the Christmas of Dan, because I
Yeah.
had the whole month of December off because Carrie and I were producing the shows, and I think
Yeah.
I was coming in just to do Christmas tape stuff. Like,
Oh my goodness.
and I grew a beard during that time, like I had a full beard. And I went to the Christmas party and Jeff Gillen came up to me and he said, where's your U-boat, Captain? Or something like that. And I was kind of miffed about that, I'll be honest. Yeah, those were
and I will say too, before we sign off, that the two of you, Sandy and I, are blessed to have you sing twice at our wedding.
Oh, that is right.
Remember the songs?
Oh, did we sing For You?
Grow Old Along With Me.
Oh, Grow Old Along With Me.
And the other one, Dan, was one you chose, which I thought was a great selection.
Yeah.
Perhaps Love.
Perhaps Love. That's
Love.
it. Yeah.
Yes.
Who was that? Like Julio Iglesias and John Denver?
No, it was
or Pablo
Placido Domingo.
Placido Domingo, yeah.
Yeah. Oh. Yeah, that was your suggestion. I'm like never heard that song before. I'm like, all of a sudden you said it, I'm like, oh, that is good.
Oh, yeah. It is beautiful.
That was a good was used at a lot of weddings back.
Thank you for asking us.
Oh, that was awesome.
That was an honor, Steve.
Well, I was in Aspen a year ago with my brother and sister. We did a quick trip, and they have a John Denver memorial area in a park along the river there. I don't know if you've ever been there, but they had these giant stones. And on these stones, I mean, they're 6 feet tall and 4 feet wide, are engraved lyrics to his songs. And I happened to see Perhaps Love. So I sent Sandy a picture of me with the holding the lyrics and I'm holding the stone. And that was pretty cool. But it made me think of you guys that day.
Well, and I've got to ask you a question before we let you go. My favorite question to ask is, are there any bloopers that remain with you from your crazy television behind the scenes days?
Well, there was a near blooper working with you two. So there was
there were a lot.
Yeah, but personal blooper and this was, remember Cynthia, the floor assistant?
Cynthia. She was great.
I think again, I say this, she fell asleep in a toilet one morning when we were doing a newscast in Carter.
I remember that.
Yeah. But it was a Monday night, and one of my friends was in town, and we had a couple pops, and he came over, and then we had a couple more pops. I didn't go to bed till like 1:30 in the morning, and I woke up to a frantic message of Cynthia on my voice. What do we call those things? The telephone.
Answering machine.
Answering machine. My gosh, I can think of what it's called. Answering machine. It was like, Steve, where are you? The news starts in 20 minutes. And that's when I woke up to that. And I just got in my car. I made it to the station like 5 minutes before the newscast. I had the script, never went through the script. And just, everything was, I said, one of probably the best newscasts ever directed.
You've never been so focused. Were you directing when I got electrocuted? Do you remember that?
No, I don't. What happened? I would remember that, wouldn't
I? During a cut-in. That's when the station had a power surge. And that's when I was running the teleprompter myself. And it's like, there wasn't like a zzz. It was just like I'm doing a cut-in for the 100th time. Why I shouldn't be nervous. I just felt my heart rate suddenly climbing, and it's like my heart was located in my throat while I was talking. So it's like all of a sudden it's like, like it just got weak, and I'm like, what is happening in my body? Am I having a panic attack? What is happening? And then I don't know if it was you or Mike Ciola saying, are you all right, Carrie? Like when we went to, I said, I don't know what's happening. And then I think it was Bunty who said that we took a hit. We took a power surge, the station.
Eureka!
And I was like, all of a sudden my hair's like,
your hair just blew up like that.
Yeah.
Fun fact, Carrie had straight hair before that incident. Now it's curly.
Right. Now it's curly.
I don't remember like any major bloopers. Maybe that's probably good. Maybe I just, I just shut them out of my mind. Do you remember any major bloopers you all had?
Well, my Paul Bunyan's ass.
I do remember that. Yes, that was funny.
I had the turned on the farmer one. Yeah.
Like I definitely pushed wrong buttons before, especially when I started TD. Like I've done that, but I'm just trying to think if there's any. With Jamie, I remember we couldn't connect Jamie one time in a live shot, and he went like half hour away, had to set up. It's like snowing, and we just never got him connected. We never could get the signal to connect, and he was just steaming. I remember he came back and like, roar. I'm like, dude, I had nothing to do with, man. I had nothing to do with.
Right. Can't control the microwave.
Yeah.
Yeah, really.
That was a fun crew. I always get just, you talk about great times, Dan, again, the three of us and Jamie, especially the four of us. And we had a few producers, but what a fun time that was. And I think about it often. I miss, I'm so happy the path I went, but I certainly miss those live days. And live newscast, and just again working with great people. Awesome.
100%. You are 100% correct, Steve. Yeah. Steve,
Thanks,
it's been
Steve.
great talking with you. And, obviously we could go on forever and ever
Yeah.
talking about the old days. And
Yeah.
I agree with you from the word go. It was one of the best times of our lives, best teams ever out there. And thanks for making it a great memory for all of us.
Yeah. Well, thanks for sharing the
Yes.
memories with me too. This is great to see both of you, and we will see you again sooner than later.
Yes. Best
Sounds
of luck
good.
with your next steps. Keep us posted.
Thank you. We'll do. Appreciate it.
All right.
Have a great
See
day.
ya.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks for tuning in to Old News with Dan and Carrie.
That's old news for now.
Join us next time.